Welcome back to the Stay Broke podcast. Today's guest is Jennifer Wood, the co-founder and owner of The Burger Shop in downtown Wake Forest, North Carolina, a local institution serving classic handmade burgers, hand-cut fries, fresh squeezed lemon and orangeade. Today is about so much more than just another restaurant. On this episode, we'll explore how The Burger Shop got started, how they tied the history of the space into the brand, the early struggles, how she balanced family and business under unimaginable pressure, her take on why so many restaurants fail, and why the burger shop has endured. Jennifer, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Randy.
So, I always like to start off by just introducing yourself. Tell us kind of who you are and where you came from and how we got here today.
Okay, my name is Jennifer Wood. I am from North Carolina. I grew up on the Outer Banks in Kitty Hawk, and I went to school at Chapel Hill, graduated in 5 years, and have always called North Carolina my home, for the most part.
Okay.
I was married to a military man, and together we had 5 children. We traveled around Washington State, Okinawa, Japan, got to see a lot of exciting things. We did return to Fayetteville, lived there for many years. And like I said, I've always thought of North Carolina as my home. Most of my family still lives here, and I love the state.
And then how'd you end up getting from Fayetteville to up here?
Yes. Well, unfortunately, my first husband returned from Afghanistan, and he suffered some extreme PTSD. And I was forced to make the decision to leave. I had 5 small children between 0 and 10, but unfortunately the situation was unsustainable, and I needed to get my children and myself into a safe place.
Okay.
So regrouped, went and moved in with my grandmother, who was suffering from advanced Alzheimer's, and I helped take care of her as things unraveled in that situation. It was then that I decided, after my grandmother passed away, that I wanted to make Wake Forest my home. I was searching for a small town that still had an active downtown, and I was searching for a place that had excellent school options for my children.
All right. What were you doing for work at the time? Or what field were you in? Or were you just not just a military wife? Like, that's a full-time job too when you're dealing with appointments and everything. Like, what kind of career path were you on at that point?
Well, I had graduated with a degree in English literature. Wasn't sure what I really wanted to do. And then I decided I wanted to go into counseling. So while I was in Okinawa, I started a master's program for counseling. Unfortunately, with military moves and having 5 children, that sort of got put on the back burner. But I made the conscious decision to stay home and be a stay-at-home mom for my children. And so I did that full time, and it was honestly the hardest job I've ever done, but rewarding. So when I came to Wake Forest, I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do. I needed to find some sort of employment. At the same time, I had met a wonderful man named Alan Schlebach, and we were introduced by his first wife. It's an interesting story in that we were next door neighbors, and one day their dogs got out, and I knew that wasn't normal, so I contacted him and contacted his wife, and we became friends. I didn't know immediately that she had MS and was in a wheelchair, but one day she called me and said that a filing cabinet was falling on her and if I could come and help. So in retrospect, I realize now, after we became friends, that she was always sort of selling her husband to me. She would make plans for us to go to dinner, and she says, "Oh, Alan's going to come along." She would make plans for us to go to the movie and sometimes back out. So unfortunately, I think she knew she was on her way out. She was very sick and was wanting to try to find someone for him. Neither one of us would ever have done like online dating, and we used to joke that if we had ever filled out an online dating profile, they would have never put us together. So I was also unraveling this first marriage and wasn't looking for a relationship, but because she spoke so highly of him and really sold him to me, when I moved to Wake Forest, he kind of kept in touch. He rented a U-Haul once and helped me move, and so we remained friends. And then eventually, he decided to relocate to Wake Forest as well. And she had passed away, um, and he needed a fresh start. And we were still communicating. So we went out to lunch one day. We went to the Lemon Tree, and that's the first time we saw the space of the Wilkinson building, that it was empty. But
I think Alan was. Did he have his own HVAC company, or
yes, he had been a businessman his whole life. He had run restaurants before, and he had had an AC company, and always sort of was his own boss. But when he moved to Wake Forest, he wanted something very laid back, something not stressful, just to kind of regroup. And he was hoping to maybe stock produce at Lowe's or nails at Home Depot. So he started the process of applying for jobs in various stores, and he never got the first interview. So after 3 months, he still is unemployed. We took a look at the little space there in the Wilkinson building, and he says, I know what I can do. I'll put a burger shop here. And it's like 900 square feet. And I said, really? You're going to fit a burger shop in this little space? And he goes, yeah, I think we can do it. So because no one would even interview him or hire him, he was forced to open another business.
It's probably best. I can't imagine him working at Lowe's or something, stocking shelves.
He
That would
would
be
have gotten bored.
interesting. What year is this that all this is happening?
I moved to Wake Forest in 2014.
Okay.
Yeah. And really just fell in love with Wake Forest. I love the downtown. I love the community. I love the school options. And, the downtown is very special. Not every town in North Carolina was able to, revitalize their downtown.
No, that's one thing that attracted my wife and I to this place was once we drove through that downtown, it was like, oh, we're home.
Yeah.
It was just that small town feel, but all the big city stuff, that she likes. So it was a good mix for us. That's because we were looking all over the triangle, and then one time in Wake Forest, and we knew this was it.
And the train goes by regularly, and I just find it very quaint. And
Yeah.
it's a very nice community. So we started building a restaurant January, February. Everyone thought he was crazy because it was 800 or 900 square feet. It's a really small space. And they were like, you're going to put a burger shop here and Hardee's is right there. But he was pretty confident. Me, not so much. I'm not a gambler. He was a gambler. And we opened July of 2015.
Okay. And I always find it interesting whenever you have a partnership where one's an entrepreneur and the other one's not. So what was your take on that? Like, you're just there for support? Like, just, all right, I trust you, or was there some doubt?
I started waiting tables when I was 15, and I paid for my college by waiting tables, and pretty much I spent a decade waiting tables to pay for college and life. And I knew how hard restaurant work was. I learned really early that it was very hard work. My first job, there was an office, and the owner had a bed in this office, and that was my first indication that they were long days. So I told Alan when he started the burger shop, listen, I'll give you 3 to 4 months to help you get it set up, train some staff, and get it going. And then I'm going to find something else to do. But that was a decade ago. I'm still here. So.
Well, it's hard to just walk away from something like that, especially when you're in a relationship with somebody. You want to support them.
Of course. And of course we were really busy right out the gate, and that made it, harder to just walk away sooner. And I enjoyed it. I ended up liking it more than I thought. After being a stay-at-home mom, you're a little isolated, and I just enjoyed interacting with the customers and talking to people all day. It was fun.
Yeah. So, I guess starting out, you said it got busy right away because at that time there wasn't a lot of options, right? There was what, 3 restaurants in downtown.
Very quiet. It's
Yeah.
not like it is today. Wake Forest has really grown exponentially. Um, there were some options, but there weren't a lot of burger options. And Alan just told me, don't worry, everybody likes a good burger. And I didn't really believe him at first because the ironic thing is I'm not a burger person. I don't think I've ever ordered a burger in a restaurant. I've had them at cookouts and at my home, but even if we occasionally get fast food, I get the chicken. I just was not a burger place person. But one day he made me a burger and I sat down and I ate it and it had blue cheese and bacon on it and some fresh toppings. And I said, I think that's the best burger I ever had. I said, that was really good. So he made a believer out of me. But he told me that everybody loves a good burger. And I have to agree with him. Our customer base is very eclectic. We have people from all walks of life coming in there to get a burger.
So I guess the plan from the beginning, since nothing's really changed since you guys have opened, I guess was just simple, traditional, just small menu, not a lot of options, all the toppings, like
Yeah. We wanted, he wanted classic burger. Um, Something that you would get like in the 50s or 60s, just your classic toppings. He was not going to have arugula. He was not going to have an egg. He was not going to do grass-fed beef. He wasn't going to do a turkey burger. He wanted just a classic handmade burger shop. And of course we do the handmade fries and then the hand squeezed orangeades and lemonades. That was actually my idea, as well as the bok choy burger, because I wanted a gluten-free option.
Okay.
So we introduced the bok choy, which is a big leaf that we wrap the burger in. Since then, I have been able to find a good gluten-free bun that we now offer in addition to the bok choy. But yeah, he wanted a handmade, made fresh from beef that's never frozen, and just simple. Like I said, it was a very small place. We just wanted counter service, grab and go. When we first opened, we quickly had to get some tables outside because people wanted to sit down and eat, and we had 3 small little tables inside. And that was how we operated for 2 years. And then Stacy, who operates and owns the Lemon Tree, another small space in the Wilkinson building, when that corner space that used to be a variety of businesses, an olive oil store, a clothing store, it became available, we decided to partner up and to turn that into a dining room. So we removed a closet and cut a hole in the wall, and now we share the dining room space with the other business. And that really open things up for us because people do like to sit down with their family and sit down for lunch. And so we expanded faster than we thought we were going to because the original plan was just, grab and go counter service.
which you still kept it simple, right? There's no
Yeah.
plates, no really. I mean, it's all bag, and I like that.
Yeah, we tried to keep it simple. Everything is bagged. And the burgers are wrapped in foil, which does 2 things. It keeps the burgers warm and it kind of like steams them up. And then also as you open the burger, the foil becomes your plate. So most of our customers really understand to just rip open the bag, you can dump your fries out, use your foil as the plate. But some people, they want a plate, so we'll give them like either a to-go tray or now we have some plates that we can bring to people. So if you really want a plate, we have it. But we wanted to try to keep it simple so that we didn't have to worry about, are you taking it to go and bagging it differently for. And it has caused some problems sometimes. Sometimes people get upset that they think they're being dished by us just giving them a bag and we want you to get out, but we just still have the same process.
Yeah. No, I like it. I remember going in there the first time, Alan behind the grill, and then seeing him take the fresh balls of meat, throw them on the grill, and it was like, well, this isn't a quick burger by any means, but it was good. I was like, man, I haven't had a burger like this in a restaurant in forever, and that's what started it. And we ended up with an office right across the street from you guys, and we became kind of regulars over there at lunchtime. And in the process, I got to know you, and I got to know Alan, and him and I got along real well. So Yeah, it was an experience going in there every time, and it was you know, you were the friendly face, and he was the grumpy bear behind the counter.
He
And
was grumpy.
that's what I loved about him, and that's
Yeah.
why I remember it got to a point where I started picking on him, calling him Grumpy Bear.
He
And
was such a great guy, such a nice guy. People were really attracted to his personality because you knew immediately where you stood with him, and he would just tell you. And he was a little grumpy, and sometimes he would be complaining back there, but it was sort of part of the show. And he would bang his spatulas and yell, and it was pretty funny. He was entertaining, definitely.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. He was grumpy, but you could tell he was just the nicest guy. He was very sincere.
Yeah, and we would not do numbers. We like to do names and descriptions because that way you learn your customers' names. And we really try hard to learn our regulars' names, and we do. And you became the Viking. It was Randy, Randy the Viking, and it makes it more personable. It does.
What were some of the, I guess, like early unforeseen problems? Was there any like initial pains trying to get it up and going, or things that you guys didn't think about?
Well, when we first opened, we thought we might be sitting on stools. We were going to put a TV in the corner, make a few burgers, make a couple milkshakes, a couple lemonades. But we were just running from the get-go. So we weren't properly staffed at first. And we didn't know how much food to order. I think the first couple of days we literally ran out of ground beef in the shop and burgers. So we would have to close early. But it didn't take us too long to hire some people and to kind of iron out some of the kinks of how much food are we going to have, or do we need, and how many burgers do we have to make. And we don't have a kitchen. We're all one space, so we would have to plan, mornings and afternoons to patty the burgers. And so that's why we sort of established the hours that we still currently have, which is 11 to 3, and then we close from 3 to 5, because we don't have a back kitchen. We have to bring someone in to patty those burgers up fresh. And we've been told by multiple people for years to just buy frozen patties, just stay open the whole time. Just sell as many as you can. Get them out quick. Have them pre-cooked. Have them ready in 2 minutes. And we just kind of stayed the course and said, no, we're going to do something different. Hardee's is right next door. And if you want that super fast burger, you can go there. Ours is going to take, 10 to 15 minutes to cook on the grill. And we just really stayed the course. And I think it was worth it. I think we offered something different.
That was clearly the right decision, because Hardee's isn't in business anymore with their frozen patties.
Actually, that is true.
It's just not what downtown's looking for, I feel like. Everybody's always looking for convenience, but I feel like the way downtown has grown, there's a cultured taste to it. It's I like Lake Forest because it's got the culture, but it's very family centered.
Yes.
And finding that balance. So whether it's, the business people or just parents trying to get out for the day or night, I want good food and I don't want to go far to get it. And,
Right.
When I'm with my kids, we get fast food, and that's not what we want to do. So having that option in a small town like that's a great
Yeah.
thing.
I can't tell you how many young boys or kids come up to me and say, I've never had a burger like that before, when they're new customers. I think the people that are moving to Wake Forest, people that are from here, I think a lot of them are very socially minded and they want to support mom and pops. And I'm always bragging about the downtown of Wake Forest because there's so many individually owned businesses. And I think that's really important. And I think that because the downtown is thriving, because it's offering options that aren't chain restaurants or, corporate stores, people want to support that and they like the feel of it.
Yeah, absolutely. What about, that place wasn't a restaurant before you guys moved in, so what was it beforehand, and what was the upfit for such a small space?
I love the story of the Wilkinson Building. I find the Wilkinson Building to be one of the most interesting buildings in downtown. It was built by the Wilkinson brothers. They were two doctors. And if you've ever noticed those two brick buildings that are on an angle from Wake Forest Elementary, they almost look identical. Those were their homes. And our space was originally their doctor's office. And that's where they saw patients. And I have a customer that's been coming in for years, and his parents owned a funeral home that was in our dining space. And downstairs was actually a morgue for a short period of time. So it's a really interesting building. They practiced for a long time. I'm not really sure how long. I think the corner space that is our dining room space became a Napa auto parts store for a while. But I had this one older gentleman that was a customer that came in and said, right there, that space, my mom made me come in here and take ballet. So it's been around for a long time. The building's 125 years old. And it's still standing and is thriving, actually. More recently, there was a gentleman by the name of Mr. Harrison, I believe, and he cut hair. He was in our space. And he cut hair for over 50 years. We had lots of new customers that would come in and say, I got my first haircut right here in this space. In fact, when we were building the restaurant, that mat that they put on underneath the barber chair, there were still two of them, like on the floor, that I literally physically scraped up, and I think it was cemented onto these like linoleum panels. It was on there tough. But he was quite a character. People loved him. His hands would shake, and he'd take these giant shears, but then as soon as he started cutting, everything was fine. So his shop was called The Barber Shop. And when we were trying to come up with the name, people were telling Alan, you should call it Alan's Great Burger Barn, or the best burger in town, or, amazing burgers are us. And I just wanted to go for something understated. We were opening a burger shop in, 800, 900 square feet. And this place had been a barber shop for 50 years, so it just seemed natural to say, let's just call it the Burger Shop. And so one of the things that we did before we opened is we got a barber pole, ordered that, and had our printer print our logo and like a fry and a burger and put it inside so it spins. Instead of like the barber spins, it's got little burger fries. And so we'll turn that on. It lights up, and it's kind of like a little homage to the guy who ran a barber shop there for over 50 years. I think you got to tip your hat to something that was there for so long. And it's a small little, hats off to the past.
How was the transitioning from the stay-at-home mom to now you're working a lot alongside Alan, and you had 5 kids? Like, how was juggling that? How'd they take it?
Well, luckily I'm blessed with a lot of energy. I have a lot of energy. And I can handle my days. But my children were older. William, my oldest, was 14, so he could help with some of the care, because I was there a lot at first. And it just required a lot of just teamwork, meal preps in advance. They ate a lot of burgers and chicken tenders. And eventually you just kind of, get a balance. I tried to work daytime while they were in school. And then I was home most nights, for them. Weekends were a little different because we would be busier on the weekend. And so I would pretty much work a lot of Saturdays. And that is the sacrifice that we've made as a family, is that, we didn't get to go away for a lot of weekends. Those are our busy times. So when people come in, oh, thank goodness it's Friday. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's Friday. This is when it really heats up for us. So there were some sacrifices, but I've gotten a lot of my children into the place to work. And I always joke that with 5 kids and 4 boys and 1 girl, I had to open a burger shop to feed them. And they ate their fair share of burgers.
Yeah, I always thought that was interesting that we were the opposite. I have the 4 girls and 1 boy. Yeah. It was just another way that we connected.
That's true.
All right, so you guys got the restaurant up and going, and things are starting to move along. How was it going? Was it pretty smooth, or?
Well, there was definitely a learning curve for me. I leaned into Alan, who had run businesses in the past, but he just is sort of not the best at paperwork and that sort of stuff. And so there was a learning curve for me. I didn't even know what NCDOR was or payroll taxes. workman's comp insurance. These were all new to me. So for myself personally, there was definitely a learning curve. And a lot of that I left to him. Um, I focused on hiring and training and customer service. And he focused on cooking the burgers and doing the paperwork side of the business.
We hope you're enjoying the interview so far. Thank you so much for watching. We feel so fortunate to be able to book such amazing guests as we're getting this thing going. One thing you could do to help us out is just engage with these videos. That will get it seen by a lot more people. We can spread the story so much further if you just give us a quick like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Anything you feel comfortable with would be a huge help. Enjoy the rest of the interview. I guess that things started, or you guys were busy straight out of the gate, and then how long before, I guess,
COVID.
sorry, yeah, you were 2015, so things pretty smooth until COVID came?
Well, as smooth as it can be with a business to run and 5 children in 5 different schools. So I think sometimes as moms, you do what's best for each kid. And luckily I did have Alan that did a lot of the driving and the pickup for some of the children. But we were just, we're just living life, getting them through school, staying, active. We love Wake Forest. We would love Joyner Park. We love to go to the beach. What we would do is Alan and I would get my mom to come and help with the kids, and we would take a week off in May, just him and I, and we would go to Oak Island and just sit on the beach and play Jim Rummy. And that was very restorative. We needed that. And then in July, we would try to take a family vacation, and we would go back to Oak Island and sit on the beach and swim with the kids. And sometimes we would keep the restaurant open, but sometimes we had to close. And Alan was really good for me in that way, in that he says, no, we need to recharge and we need to close. So every now and then we would hang a sign on the shop and say, the cook is tired and needs a vacation. And we would close down for a week. And I was always worried that people would forget about us or get out of the habit of coming, but they were always happy to see us come back.
I think that's something that people don't do enough of, is that recharge time, or like
Right.
being able to know when it's time to step away. And that's something that my wife and I, like, we have to do it. Like, you can tell, like, we start getting short with each other, and then, like, things just aren't going as smooth, and we're bickering, and it's like, all right, we haven't been out in a while, or we haven't went and spent the night away in a while, like, let's go. So we have our, like, close spot where, like, all right, we need to go get away for a night. We'll go downtown Raleigh, or, every couple months we try and go get away for a couple nights, and it's like, we have to do that. If we don't, like, you can see the difference.
Yeah, and we took other mini breaks too. So luckily my mom is very supportive, and she would come and take care of the kids, and we would get away for the weekend, and even sometimes just going to Raleigh and staying in the hair curler and having fun. It was important. Yeah, it's very important. And then also we were forced by the family obligations to keep our hours really narrow. We were given lots of advice, and people really criticized us for closing at 8 o'clock at night. But I had to get home, it was a long enough day. And so our hours are really skinny. I think we're only open 39 hours a week. We're closed on Sunday nights, and we're closed all day Monday, and that will never change as long as I'm running the show. And then we're just open 11 to 3 and then 5 to 8. So people said, you'll never survive. You'll never survive only being open those hours. But that's what we had to do. We had children at home. And what we ended up doing was funneling our business into those hours. If you wanted a burger, then those were your hours.
Yeah.
Another thing is that we kept it very old school. It's still very old school. If you want a burger shop burger, you have to get us on the phone or show up in person. We do not have online ordering. We do not do Grubhub or DoorDash or any of those things we want. And people told us that you would never make it. You've got to get with the times. You know, people need to online order. But I knew that it would be a disaster if we did open those floodgates because we'd have no way of controlling it, and we would be there till midnight cooking the orders. We're a small place, and so that's what sort of acts as the floodgates to limit what we can handle is what can come in the door, come in through the phone. Some people criticize us for that, but it's what we can handle and what we can manage.
And it works well.
And it works well.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Every business I get involved in, it's like there's never a shortage of advice or opinions. And it's
No.
like it's so easy to get caught up in that and like, oh, you start doubting yourself, or at least I do. Like, oh, am I on the right path? Do I have the right idea? But yeah, sticking with your plan and keeping it forward and being consistent with it, I think is the most important thing.
And everybody, customers, other business owners, family will give you lots of advice, but they're not the ones that are going to be showing up there to unlock the door or to make the patties or to cook the patties. And you have to trust your instincts. You have to trust what's going to work with you. You know, if you burn yourself out and snap and get angry with customers, you're going to lose your customers. You know, you really have to just trust your own instincts and your own gut when it comes to making decisions about your business.
100%. I know when I was operating Keith's store, after I'd fixed it up and I was trying to, really get it going, it was like everybody was telling me what I was doing wrong and what I should be doing. And if they were doing it, this is what they would be doing. And I got to the point where if somebody came in, like one of the regulars or anybody was like, here, let me tell you what you should do. And I'm like, well, if you want to give me your opinion, you have to volunteer up here for 7 hours first.
Right.
Until you hit that 7 hours, I'm not listening. I would walk away because it was
Right.
just too much.
Have we ever decided to walk away?
We can definitely get there.
There's been times, I actually have a word for it, and it's called Saturday-itis. And so we start off slower in the week, and as Friday night comes and Saturday, by the time Friday night's over and Saturday's over, we're tired,
Yeah.
There's, and I just try to tell my staff, people are just coming in, they just want a burger. It's just a simple burger for them. And it is just a simple burger. But when you're on burger 300 for the day, it's tough and you're working hard to make it quick and good for every person. So when you drive home on Saturday night, you're tired, and that's when you start thinking about, well, maybe I'll just close, or maybe I'll sell it, or maybe, and I just call it Saturday-itis. Take a break, recharge, you'll feel better on Tuesday, and usually we do.
Yeah. I like that.
So,
I know what I was going to say was, you're in an industry that's like, it's the most failing industry for people starting up restaurants with the smallest margins and like all these things. And like, you have people that are trying to do the same thing over and over again. So doing something just a little bit different seems to be how like good restaurants survive. If you're if you're a small business, not like the corporate restaurants, obviously theirs is the doing the same thing over and over again, but making yourself stand out and having those hours and having the consistency and all
Sure.
that stuff. And that's what people don't think about when they're giving you their opinion,
right. Well, we try really hard to be consistent. With hand cut fries, it can be challenging because there's different potatoes at different times of the year, the age of your oil. We do change our oil very frequently, try to keep it very fresh. But that's something that was in the foremost in my opinion, is to try to be as consistent as possible. There's a reason why McDonald's is so successful, because people know what they're going to get when they go in. And I think that's important. But one thing I train my staff is that people will even go back to a restaurant if they've gotten sick, if they've had food poisoning. They'll try again. But somebody will never, ever go back to a restaurant if they've been treated rudely.
Yeah.
That's it. They're gone. And so we try really hard to be customer focused, learn people's names, make sure they have what they need. We don't have any advertising cost either. So letting some things go, if I've got, a young kid stealing soda, let's let it go. If someone wants extra sauce, just give them the extra sauce. I get annoyed when I get nickeled and dimed when I go to restaurants. Like one time I think I ordered extra pickles and it cost me 75 cents and they gave me 2 pickles. And So if you want extra pickles on your burger, we're gonna like load you up. Like we don't skimp on the toppings, we don't skip on the fries, because I feel like perception of value is important. When I go out to eat with my kids, and I feel like I'm spending good money and I'm not getting value for it, then it makes me not want to go back. If I'm divvying up, 14 fries.
Yeah.
So we load up on the fries, and if you want extra toppings, we load up on that. And you can put whatever toppings you want on your burger. And I think that all plays into the perception of value. So I think the burger shop has always been able to provide that, give people, value. You're getting a handmade, hand cooked burger, and we're not going to skimp on the fries. And if you want extra pickles, we're not going to charge you for those.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Um, the the customer service and all the things you're doing it's working because you guys have won, I guess, awards or been voted best of best multiple times.
Sure.
Like, what are some of the standout ones that you guys have gotten?
well, when Alan was around, we definitely got best of the best. We that's I think we're still nominated. I think we win like second or third now, but we also really don't promote that and we don't vote and I don't keep customers' emails or anything like that. It's not, when Alan got sick, it wasn't important for me
Yeah.
to win the awards. I just like my reward is happy customers, and so I'm always checking with my staff if I'm there. I said, people like their food, is everything okay? If something's not right, let's make it right. So that's another thing that we try really hard to do, is we try not to make mistakes. But if it does occur, we make it right.
Right.
So we definitely do that. I had a gentleman not too long ago came in, he called his order in, and my young guy gave it to the wrong person. And so then he had to wait for his food to get cooked again. And those things make me really that's what gets me the most irritated, is mistakes like that. And so, refund the guy's money with no questions asked, because this is our mistake and our fault.
Yeah.
So we want to make it right. So we do that.
And I think, again, that's something else that gets lost in this day and age. I feel like customer service isn't as much of a priority in a lot of businesses, and they tend not to make it because of that. But that's something that everything we do, it's always, we make mistakes, we own up to those mistakes, and we try and fix it as best we can. And even if we lose that customer, if the other customers see it and see that we care enough to,
Sure.
do it or try and fix it, then they tell people and it helps. And it's, not so much about people talking about, oh, well, they fix it, but just building that trust and that relationship in the
Right.
community.
Yeah, definitely. Alan used to read the reviews. I don't read the reviews, although some of them are really funny, and some of my favorite are the bad ones. But I'm not a social media person. I don't enjoy that. I'm just too busy with life. I don't have like Facebook and those types of things. The restaurant does, but I don't really engage in that. Which is another thing people said would doom us to failure, that you have to have a social media marketing presence. And we will occasionally post something on the Wake Forest community page. I just text a friend of mine and he'll post it for me. And one of my employees set up an Instagram that I promptly forgot about, but it might be out there. We did have someone that was taking a video of her husband eating this ginormous double burger, and she thought his jaw might have unhinged. So that might be on the Instagram, but I don't follow that. I'm not interested in that. I used to get aggravated when Alan would read me the reviews, because we would try hard to do everything right, and that's another thing, is that you actually can't do everything right. And that was something I had to learn, that a few bad reviews actually lend legitimacy to your good reviews. And also, you're never going to make everybody happy. And you will doom yourself to failure if you try to make everybody happy all the time. It's just an impossibility.
Yeah.
But someone would come in and say, "Oh, the burger was delicious, and the staff was so nice, and friendly, and they checked on us, and they gave us a refill, and great place, 4 stars." Oh my gosh, please don't do me any favors. You don't understand basic math. You just brought down my average.
That's funny.
So I just don't read them anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't respond, good or bad. I'm busy. I'm busy taking care of my kids and my home and my business, and that's just not something that interests me. Plus, I know it'll just drive me crazy. The ones that aren't truthful, and so I just leave it alone. And then also, when I'm looking at something, I do read reviews. But one thing that really turns me off is if a business or an individual argues with a customer over a review or talks back about their experience. I mean, their was their experience. We may have seen it as a business owner as differently, but I'm not going to argue with a customer over in a review. And I've seen that before, and I just think that that's really bad business practice.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can't change somebody's opinion,
Right.
right? Especially over, talking through emails or through, the unspoken word. It doesn't carry a lot of weight. I feel like it's a way to spiral out of control very quickly. I feel like, because then you got the bandwagon and you start going back and forth, and it turns into a mess.
Yeah. We did have a lady once that posted something bad on the community page because she came in at 2 o'clock on a Saturday and was upset that we were at a 30-minute wait. And we're honest. Like, if we're busy and you're going to have to wait 30 minutes instead of 15, we're going to let you know so you can make the choice whether you want to wait or find another place to grab lunch or dinner.
Yep.
But she thought it was bad that we had a 30-minute wait at 2 o'clock, like we weren't working hard enough or doing our job. And we didn't engage, but the community did.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of customers that really came to our defense. And it was kind of rewarding to see other people, come in and say, "Hey, wait a minute, you can't fault them for being busy,"
So the downtown, they like to do a lot of events and a lot of different things, and then they purchase the main street right there and shut it down for different things. Like, how do the events affect your business? Is it good, bad, or a mixture depending on the event?
It does depend on the event. Generally, anytime you have something going on that's going to attract thousands of people, you're going to have a surge in your business. And so we love the events. There is a Friday Night on White, and that brings with it challenges. There are a lot of children that come unattended, and some of them can be very disruptive. And we've struggled with that a bit. But what I decided to do is just to hire an extra person and to be a team player, because I think that the event is successful for the town, and there are a lot of businesses where that's their best night of the month. And when it comes to the downtown, I am a team player. And I can't say that if it rains, I'm not a little bit happy because our Friday nights are usually lucrative and easy and good. And then we get the Friday Night on White, it can be chaotic. But we've just, adopted an attitude of, it's going to be fun. Let's just make sure that, the kids don't steal the ketchup bottles and do obscene things with them on the windows, and we'll be good.
Yeah. I think just that one event's a representation of like how much the town's changed and how much it's grown.
Yeah.
I know when I moved here and started going to it, it was small, it was families. You could go wait in line for a few minutes, get a drink or get some food, and now it's like you go there, and if you're not prepared, you can spend the whole night just waiting in line trying to feed you or your family. And then you mentioned the kids, like my girls like to go down there. It's become the teenage hangout, so it's not just the families, it's a big mixture. And it really has taken or consumed the whole downtown. Have you noticed like the changes in downtown, or what's your perspective on the growth in downtown?
Oh, the growth in downtown? Well, some of the events have gotten a little too large, I think. But I think the town is working to control it and make them safe. They bring in, outside help as far as police and security people to and put in lights, and I think they're doing what they need to do to try to ensure that it's a safe and fun thing. But yeah, the food truck lines are long, and the crowds can be massive. But a lot of times the brick and mortar places are quiet. So if you find yourself in a really long line, maybe pop over to the pizza place, or, us, or even Bodega. There's still restaurants that are brick and mortar that are open for the events.
Right.
And sometimes they can be faster. But yeah, I like the events. I attended the parades and some of the things, as a spectator, and now I'm at the shop. So it's fun. It's a good energy.
I know recently they just passed that new ordinance or whatever where people can drink in certain areas of the downtown.
Yes.
And has that had any effect?
We're a participator in that if you want to, at the events when they're allowed the social district drinking, you're welcome to come into our shop. A lot of people have told us that we do need to grab our own ABC license and sell beer, but once again, that's something that, is a possibility for the burger shop down the road, but right now wasn't something I was prepared to take on. I haven't noticed an increase in our business from social marketing, but it does make me feel less worried when people do show up with their alcohol, especially on Friday night on White, because as a business owner, you don't want to be kicking out your customers because they're walking around with a cup of beer.
Yeah.
But it does put the business owners in a predicament if they don't have an ABC license and somebody is coming into their home, into their establishment with the alcohol. So this makes it easier for us. So I'm for the social district just because it's safer. I don't have to worry about kicking someone out or getting in trouble for them having alcohol in my shop.
I know when our office was downtown, it was so easy to keep like our fingers on the pulse of the town, what was going on. Now that we're a little bit outside of town, I don't always know what's going on. Like, what's your level of involvement with downtown, and kind of, do you ever get involved in any of the business groups or any of the meetings that try and figure out what direction the town's
I
going?
have participated in some meetings, but I feel like there's enough smart people running the show and weighing in that I don't need to. My business approach is to kind of focus on my four walls in my home, and I'm really busy. And now that I'm doing it by myself and Alan's gone, I stay extra busy. So I have faith that the people who are running the show and making the decisions have the downtown in their best interest and are capable of handling the situations. I don't think they need 2 cents. So
Again, plenty of opinions.
exactly.
So if we can go back to the timeline, like you had mentioned that, Alan got sick. What came first, Alan getting
COVID.
sick or COVID?
COVID.
Okay, so let's talk about that whole experience.
COVID. Okay. What's there to say about COVID that hasn't been said? One thing that was interesting is that when we would go to work, the employees would say, "Oh, I hope we're not busy. Oh, I hope we're not busy." And Al and I would always say to them, "Well, you want to be busy because if we're not busy, you won't have a job." So COVID came, and the first few weeks was like, I don't know, a blanket came down and we weren't allowed to go. And we were not even sure if we were going to be able to stay open. And the first night we had like 2 customers. And so we just had to send a text to all of our employees that, until further notice, it was just going to be Alan and I working the shop because we weren't going to be able to afford to pay anybody. And we didn't know if we were going to be able to stay open or if we were going to have any business. So for a week and a half, it was just Alan. He would work the fries and the grill, and I would work the front. And all of a sudden, like, something just lifted, and we were so busy. People decided that they could venture out to pick up some food, and we had to call our staff back in. And they had a new attitude where they were happy to have a job and that they were happy we were busy. So restaurants were deemed, necessity, and we were able to stay open. But then our dining room was shut down, and we had to take orders from outside the door. And we were hustling. The town did a good job. They blocked off the spaces in front of our shop with cones, and so we did curbside like everybody else, which meant that we took phone orders, we did credit card payments over the phone. We would run out to the cars. Sometimes we would take the orders at the cars, run in. We were just running back and forth, bringing people their carts back, get their food, write down, what cars they're driving. Yeah, it was definitely, it was tough.
At least you guys were set up for it, though. Now all those opinions of people saying you need to roll plates and you need this,
Right.
like all of a
It
sudden.
was very easy for us just to really transition into that. And then also, the burgers and fries, were good. They traveled well. So people weren't going to sit down steakhouses and restaurants. And so, those types of restaurants really struggled. But we were set up for it. And we actually did really well. We thrived during COVID. It was quick. It was easy. People were stressed. We went through so much bacon. Everybody wanted bacon. There was a lot of emotional eating, I think, and bring the milkshakes too. And so that was good. Beef went down in price for a while, so that was also good. But then it went sky high.
Yeah.
And that's something that COVID taught me, is that sometimes when you're dealing with a commodity that is going to fluctuate in price, you may have to pass that cost on to your customers. And when beef reached $9 and $10 a pound, we had to put a 50-cent surcharge on the burger. Otherwise, we'd just be working for free and losing money.
Yeah.
And then we were having a difficult time getting the beef. So there was a couple of weeks where we couldn't get the beef from our food suppliers, and we had customers. We needed to stay open. So I started finding the beef. Like, I went to Walmart. They also sold these 10-pound logs. And then they imposed limits, though, on how much you could buy. So I stopped going through the checkout and did the self-checkout. But then this one guy at the Walmart, I think he was going to put a hit out on me or something, because he would see me. He goes, "You can't buy that many logs." And he would be looking for me. But I was stressed, and I wanted to, stay open. So I would go in the morning and I would buy 2 logs, which was the limit. And then I'd go home and I'd change my outfit and my hair. And I'd go back and I'd buy 2 more logs. And then he would be looking for me. So then I'd send my kid in. And he would go buy some. And one time he goes, "Do you have children?" I go, "No, I don't have any." He was really on the lookout for me. But it was really stressful not knowing if we would be able to stay open, because we couldn't get the ground beef. And then the price of potatoes skyrocketed. They were 19 a case when we first went into COVID, and towards the end of COVID, they were 68 for that same case.
Wow.
So a lot of restaurants that were open were still struggling with supply and also, the cost. And it took a while for costs to come down, and they've never gone back down to pre-COVID levels. So if you're wondering why, your food and your restaurants and all that are so expensive now, it's because the food costs are still high, and they've never really gone down to pre-COVID.
No. Did you guys get any pushback from the clientele or your customer base whenever you hung the sign up saying we're charging 50 cents more and this is why?
Yeah, some. But I didn't want to change the menu permanently. I wanted it to go back to the normal price that we had. It was, I remember one time when the pizza places had to put a cheese surcharge on it. And so, moving in now, I've been warned by distributors that maybe your price of oranges or lemons might go up, or, beef is kind of going up as well. I know the last time you probably went to buy a steak in the grocery store, it's high. So I don't like to do that, but sometimes it's necessary, and that's something that COVID taught me, is that, I'm working hard and I don't need to work for free. If my supplies are going to cost that much, then I need to sometimes pass that on. And I just remember telling people, "Well, I'm sorry, you don't have to order the burger today. And whenever the prices go back to where they should be or normally are, then we'll take that off."
Yeah. And it's not just you. I mean, it was everywhere. Everywhere you went into had a sign saying we have to raise it by this much, or we can't afford it. So it makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. So after you get through COVID, or I guess after things start to go back to normal and all the
Well,
restrictions.
we were tired. So I remember very clearly my daughter was carrying a fish basket to a lady that had it loaded up with some like lettuce and salad stuff. And I said, "Be very careful." And she dropped it, and she spilled it all over the table and over the lady. And I just started to cry. And Alan looked at me, he goes, "We're tired." And we were physically exhausted. And so we closed on Tuesdays. And we were just, after COVID, and we were tired. We had to close. We're older, we're not young. And so we closed. I've since reopened on Tuesdays. But for a while there, we were closed on Tuesdays as well because we just needed time to recover.
So then, when, I guess, I don't want to jump ahead far, I'm trying to remember the timeline, but when did Alan get sick?
Yeah, so we got married right before COVID hit, and he got sick like a year and a half into our marriage. So it was July. We were vacationing in New Bern. And if you've never been to New Bern, it's an awesome place to visit with awesome restaurants. And he just was tired, and he couldn't keep up and couldn't regain his strength. And when we returned, he was having difficulty swallowing. And so we were able to make an emergency appointment. Actually had a cancellation and we were seen that day, and she scoped him and there was just growths all over. He had throat cancer. So he was scheduled for a biopsy, and it came back as cancer. And she was very serious when she told me. And I just remember going, okay, so he has a little cancer. And I was really not worried. I just figured we'd fix it and he'd go back to, normal. And it turns out he chose to do a complete, laryngectomy and had a big surgery and everything removed and reconstructed. And he had 2 strokes and spent months in the ICU and the hospital. He's a strong person, but he recovered. This was healing physically, and because of that, he lost his ability to speak. But he could still yell at me. I'm not quite sure how, but he got his point across. And he was emotionally fragile, as most people would be, and wanted me to just hang a sign on the door and say that we're closed. But I knew his medical equipment required electricity and that we needed to pay the electric bill, so we stayed open. And it was a busy time for me. I was able to spend a lot of time with him in the hospital. My mom and my sister came and helped with the household and the kids. And people were saying, "Why are you going, to the burger shop? Why are you working? You should be home and resting when you can." But there was something therapeutic about getting on the grill and learning how to cook the burgers and make the burgers. I used to swim laps, and it was very meditative to swim the laps and think. And I think being behind the grill and learning how to cook at the burger shop and working busy shifts gave me an outlet for my nervous energy. And it was almost meditative to just do something physical, but it also requires a lot of attention. I get so mad when people say, "Oh, you're just a burger flipper," because it's a really hard job. And the only people that can do the job well, at least in our shop, are the ones that can multitask and problem solve and focus and concentrate. Yeah. So I found it, meditative to do that. And then when things started to get really tough with him, because unfortunately he went in for a recheck and the cancer was back. And I remember she just scoped him to see how things was healing, and you could see the growths again. And the doctor was upset, and she ran out of the room. And I remember chasing her down the hall going, "Wait, you have to tell me what's going on. Like, have I watched too many movies where they sit you down and tell you?" And she told me he had 2 to 3 weeks. This was the beginning of December. His surgery was in September, and this was December. And if he chose to do chemo, he'd have 2 to 3 months. And so, of course, Alan chose the chemo. And it was tough. His first round almost killed him, and he was in the hospital for a week. And the second round was less medication, but that almost killed him, and he was in the hospital for a week. And his third round was sort of just maintenance, oral chemo, and helped him get through the end.
Yeah.
And so at this time, my son, Garrett, my second son, he dropped out of East Carolina, and he came home and he helped the family. And that's when he came into the burger shop and learned how to make the fries and do the front and cook. So he was a savior. He really helped us out. But my boys, I knew, would help. when they needed to. And my family, my sister and my mom helped with the kids and really allowed me to be with him. And we took him to the beach a lot. He loved the beach, so we would go to the beach. But he had lost his ability to speak, and he was in a wheelchair, and he could not walk very far. And we rented a condo on the beach, and people told me not to do it. Like, what if he has a medical emergency? And I'm like, what if you have to carry him? Well, he was so thin at this point, I could probably have carried him. But it was one of those events too where you go, no, this is what's right, and this is what he wants to do. So I told my one sister on the phone, I says, well, if worst comes to worst, the fire department's a half a block away. I'll just run to the firefighters and they'll have some young guy that will come help me carry him up to the, condo. So he got this surge of energy, Alan, and I got his walker, his wheelchair, and we had to go up a half flight, and he made it, and he sat down, and I carried him another one, and then he sat down, and we made it to this condo. And he sat down on the bed, and he was spent, and he was like, see no firefighters. He was not going to have me call some young firefighter. So he was stubborn very much to the end, but it was a beautiful time because we just sat there. It was winter, but you know how North Carolina can have these gorgeous days. Mm-hmm. And it was warm, and I just would put him out. I pushed this big, Barker lounger out onto the deck, and he just would lay there and watch the dolphin and the oceans, and it was sunny and warm and beautiful. And yeah, so that was one of our last trips, and he died in March.
Well, that was the best thing that you could have done for him, I feel like, because he didn't want the sympathy. He didn't want people coming around.
He didn't want the firefighters.
I didn't see him for quite a while because he just wanted to be with his family and try and enjoy his last days, and you were able to oblige that, so that's awesome.
Yeah, it was hard. We were such a good couple. We were so well suited. We were so different. But we really had a lot of fun together, and we laughed and just enjoyed being with each other. I mean, he did smoke. He didn't smoke a lot. His brother gave me a hard time about that, but I'm not going to tell a full-grown adult man what to do. I mean, nobody wants to live with a nag. So that was his decision. But I think he would have gotten the cancer anyway, even if he didn't smoke. He didn't smoke very much, but his first wife was diagnosed with MS, multiple sclerosis, and right before they even got married. And he chose to stick with her. And she ended up in a wheelchair within 2 years of their marriage. So for 18 out of their 20-year marriage, 18 years, he picked her up in and out of a wheelchair, and in and out of a bed, and in and out of doctor's appointments and surgeries, and he was there for her. And so I've come to realize that if there was ever anybody, and he did it without complaint, and he was loyal and devoted to her. And so if there was ever anyone who deserved to have someone strong and capable to take care of them in their time of need, he deserved that.
Yeah.
So it was a blessing to have him in our life. He really helped our family heal. My children got to see a wonderful relationship and how you should be treated and loved. And he was great for the kids. And we were blessed to have him for the 8.5 years that we did.
Yeah. I was happy to know him. I know that.
Yeah.
He was a great man.
He was an interesting guy.
He was.
Yeah.
So, but for you, I mean, this had to be hard, right? Because you're focusing on him and your family, but then you still have this business in the background that you didn't want to start, and you got to make a decision whether you want to keep it or not. Right. And can you take us through that process a little bit?
Well, there's that light bill, so we had to pay the light bill, so we had to keep it going. And I have my son working for me now, and that was helpful. The customers are amazing. My sister set up a GoFundMe, and people donated money, friends, family, but a lot of customers. And we'd have an older couple come in and hand me a sympathy card and have, $400 cash. They're like, we want you to have all of it. And just this community support and the love from the customers was just really encouraging. Wake Forest is an amazing town, and our customers are fantastic. And I think most of the businesses in Wake Forest will say the same thing. You know, people are loyal. They want to be loyal to, you know, their restaurants. They like them, and we get to know people. Like we take your name and we learn your name, and we learn about your family. And it's the most surprising thing that for me running the restaurant is watching these families and people grow. There's women that were coming into our shop because they were pregnant and just had to have a double cheeseburger and a fry. And now their kids are coming in with their balled up money to order. And I'm like, I remember when your mom was pregnant, and it's only been 10 years.
Right.
And I've seen customers, you know, go through their own illnesses. I have customers whose husbands have died or their wives have died, and they're still here. The burger shop is a strange place. We've had a wedding reception there. We had a wake. We had prom dates. So it just is an interesting place, and I just love the community and learning about the customers and what they're going through.
Yeah.
And the amount of love and understanding that was directed to us and my family when Alan was sick was, restorative.
Was there any consideration of selling it, or were you pretty much, I'm going to keep this thing going? And
Well, I put a sign up, in loving memory, and I had a picture of Alan. Once again, I told him I'd give him 3 to 4 months, and now I'm still here a decade later. I don't feel like it's my calling as much as I love it. I have my last son, youngest is 14, and he just entered high school. My daughter is a senior and getting ready to graduate. So I actually am in a position where I'm trying to make some decisions what I'm going to do with the business. My older children don't want to take over the business, and I don't think that's unusual. I think a lot of people, their children don't want to take over the family business. It seems to be a new thing.
Yep.
No matter what business it is, pest control or HVAC or restaurants, the children want to do something different, and my family is no exception. Possibly my youngest son, he's told me to save it for him. So, but we'll see. He's 14. So I have some decisions to make, but I'm not sure that, I think I'm where I need to be now, but I'm not sure if this is what I want to do long term. And I am getting older, and restaurant work is difficult.
Yeah.
And it's hard. But it's not what I'm supposed to do long term. So I am actually looking for an exit ramp.
Yeah.
But of course, I don't want to close the burger shop. So I want to maybe transition it into some new ownership.
Right. So I know, from the outside looking in, it was, we're kind of waiting to see, like, were you going to keep it going? Because, like, we knew this story. So
Yeah.
wondering, and then next thing I know, you expanded.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that a little bit? That one kind of caught me off guard.
Well, no, we people do think that was the time frame correlated, but we actually expanded into the dining room before he
Right.
And that. But Alan had always talked about maybe franchising because he always thought it would be a great business to franchise. It's like he said, people always love a good burger, and there are a lot of burger franchises out there, and I think someone could take it and run with it. We have customers that come from Charlotte. People that come into town. Lots of the kids that grew up with our burgers, come home from college, and they say, "Oh, this place would do great in my town." So I think there's a possibility. Am I the person to do that? I don't think so.
Yeah.
It's not for me. But it's been 3.5 years since Alan died.
Right.
And it's been 4 years since he stopped working at the business. So I guess I have to own it now. It's mine.
Yeah.
And it's been fun, and it's been rewarding, and it's paying the bills, and it is successful. I just don't think it's what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
And I have to listen to that. I've reinvented myself before. I can do it again. But I'm not 100% sure what the timeline is. But
Right.
I do want it to be, a graceful exit.
What about, so the lemon tree moved out?
Yes.
That's, I guess that's more what I was referring to on the expansion.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
I'm
so,
sorry.
no, that's okay. Cause you, like you mentioned earlier, you're sharing that space. You had already expanded, sharing the dining room with the lemon tree. They took a bigger space, in a different part of downtown. And then, that's what I was referring to when I said you
gotcha.
surprised
I
me
actually
by
forgot
you
that.
you opened up a whole new place and it was completely different.
Oh yeah. So okay. So when Stacy with the lemon tree, we always knew she was going to outgrow that space. She's got a very successful business. She works very hard. She puts out a great product. And she came to me and she said that she was going to be moving and expanding to a bigger location. So I doubled down and I knew I had to take that kitchen. She was leaving behind some important things. I knew how expensive it was to get certain things put in, hoods, 3 compartment sinks, grease traps, all that was there. And I bought most of her equipment off of her, but I just knew I had to take that space. And I didn't want a bad neighbor.
Yeah.
And Stacy was a great neighbor, and I didn't want someone to move in with something competitive or that would be a bad neighbor, because whoever's in that space, we have to work so intimately with each other to share the dining room and to share the door. So you have to have a lot of respect for whoever's there. So I grabbed it and I spent money and time and energy building a new business. I forgot about that. Yeah, I did expand.
Just a little blip in the radar.
But I had so much fun, like creating the logo and the menu, and I wanted to do like healthy soups and salads to really complement the burger shop, to give people options. And so I did that, and it was fine. Things were doing well, going slow, but I like slow growth. I didn't want it to explode like the burger shop did. But then another setback was that the Wilkinson building, is 125 years old. And unfortunately, the landlord, Bob Johnson, had to do some major renovations. He was required to. And that required both businesses to shut down. So luckily I had a little bit of a runway to try to prepare for this. But full building shut down, and the contractors working on it did a really great job of getting me back in there. And I like boo-hooed and I said, widowed woman supporting 5 kids, this is my only source of income, please work quickly. And they did, but we were shut down for I thought 6 weeks, but I had a customer come in and tell me no, it was 7 weeks and 4 days.
Oh.
So he had been counting the days. And yeah, so we were shut down for 7 weeks and 4 days. And that means I still had to pay, food bill and payroll tax, and I had to pay some retention pay to keep some employees. And I had been preparing for that, trying to squirrel away some money to have that. And so I suppose the fact that the burger shop survived COVID, and then the burger shop survived Alan getting sick, and the burger shop survived Alan dying. And now the burger shop actually survived a 7.5 week shutdown,
No.
which would have tanked most businesses. Most restaurants would not have been able to survive a 7.5 week, no revenue, period. But we opened the doors and our customers just immediately came back. In fact, someone shared with me a post, someone posted to the Wake Forest community page, when is the burger shop opening again? I can't take it anymore. So we did feel like we were missed, and our first month open was good. I thought we were going to need a little bit of a warm up, but everybody just came right back. And yeah, we're doing great. So then my son Garrett decides that he doesn't want to do the restaurant business, and so he told me that he was going to be leaving in May. And he was going to go bartend and wait tables on the Outer Banks and do some fishing. And so I knew I had lost that battle. It was either work all summer over a hot grill or work with hot girls. Work on a hot grill or work with hot girls. So, he was gone. And I knew that I wasn't going to be able to run both restaurants.
Yeah.
It was too much work as it was, and but I did appreciate having control over the space and control over who I brought in. And I said, I believe in serendipity. And I said to my masseuse, I said, "You don't know anyone that wants to buy a restaurant, do you?" And she goes, "Yeah, I do." And she introduced me to this family, and we clicked. And I made them a good deal, and they are thrilled, and they are thriving.
Yeah.
So they have changed it to the White Story Cafe, and they serve an amazing breakfast, great lunch. They kept some of my soups and some of my sandwiches and some of my ideas, and they still have the little salad bar, but they are really doing great. And I have a lot of respect for them, and vice versa. We work well together, and a lot of respect for each other's customers. And she wants me to succeed, and I want her to succeed, and so we've got a great partnership. And so now I'm back to sharing the dining room with them, and I'm thrilled because now I'm back focusing just on the burger shop.
Yeah. So are you glad you made that choice then to go ahead and take it over and
Absolutely.
keep control of it? And
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I just knew I had to take the kitchen, and but this is a recurring theme I feel in this interview, that my heart's not in it. I love to make soups and to cook, but it's not, I know it's not what I'm called to do.
yeah. Yeah. Restaurant ownership is such a thing of passion, and like not having that, it just starts to become a job, and that's one of those hard things. It's something that you see that like chefs are just so passionate about the food
Right.
and the love and if you don't have that, then it's hard to stay motivated
I love
in
the
that industry.
customers.
Yeah,
I love
absolutely.
interacting with the customers. I love people. I love the good, the bad, and the ugly. I mean, some of my favorite stories are the bad customers. Like, we had this preacher that would come in when we first opened, and he would always talk about his church and Jesus, and then he would steal soda. And so I said, please let me put a sign up. I wanted to put a sign up on the soda machine that said, "Thou shalt not steal soda." But he wouldn't let me.
Yeah.
Now this guy has since moved. But we have fantastic customers, and I just love interacting with people. I find them so interesting. And I like, I like making a little bright spot in their day if I can.
Yeah.
So.
What do you attribute all the surviving to, like the restaurant being able to survive all these hard times and the shutdowns? Was it, the minimalist approach, or was it good planning, financial planning on your part, or like how did that work?
Well, I would never use good financial planning in my name in the same sentence, but that is for a different topic. I am frugal, and I do try to pay my bills. I think it's just being malleable, personally and in a business. If something's not working, you have to change it. And every day at the restaurant, you're faced with making a decision, fixing a problem, and you have to think outside the box. You really do. But people want to know, what's the secret to success? You mentioned that restaurants have the highest failure rate.
Mm-hmm.
When we were building the burger shop, we had some money, and we were trying to figure out how to spend it. And so I looked into financing the equipment. And because I was a first-time business owner, they came back with like 33% interest rate. And I said, "I have good credit. Why do you want to hit me with that?" And he said, "Because it's like a 90% failure rate."
Yeah.
For businesses, restaurants. And so I think the reason why we survived, why we succeeded, why we've survived, is that first and foremost, you have to put out a good product, and you have to put out what people want. You can be as nice and as friendly, but if they don't like your burger, they're not going to come back.
Yeah.
And you have to be customer focused. You have to make people feel special. You have to try to learn their name. You have to make eye contact. You have to check to make sure they're happy. You can't be on your phone scrolling, or texting your friends. I'm a firm believer that if you're treated rudely somewhere, you'll never go back.
Yeah.
And yeah. And then you have to put out a good product. And we have never cut corners. We try really hard to do, fresh options, and We try to put a lot of care into people's food and really make sure that we're putting out a good product at a reasonable price and with a smile.
Yeah.
It's real. People want to know what our secret is. Why are the burgers so good? And I said, well, we just use 80/20 beef. We use a high quality ground beef. We don't put anything on them, no seasoning, nothing. But we make them fresh and we make them with love. And there's something to be said about that. If you are paying attention to the details and, you care, then people's experience will be good, hopefully.
Yeah. But you also have to run a business at the same time. I think
Of
that's where
course.
a lot of people get lost. They think if they just have a good product and customer service that they're going to survive. But if you're not using or making good business choices along the way, then it's so easy to get caught up in that. And I guess you choosing to expand and the reason you did it made sense. You didn't just jump into that and then when it was time you found a way out of it and it's worked out for the better. But I think a lot of people just if I just make food and I do treat my customers well, the business will take care of itself. And the restaurant's the biggest industry for that, where everybody likes to eat, everybody's got to eat, so all I got to do is make good food. But there's the whole business side to that, the
Right.
financial planning and the making sure you're following all the rules and all the codes and everything inside the
Sure.
business and
Sure.
all that stuff. It's just stuff that people don't think about. And you talked about that in the beginning, that this is all stuff that you dove into and you learned. And I guess what were some of the hardest things that you had to learn about the restaurant industry along the way?
Just the financial parts of it. That was something that Alan did. But one thing that he told me on his deathbed was that I didn't file the taxes. And that's like stress. I said, what? He goes, I didn't file the taxes. So he kind of left me a little bit of a financial mess. He just thought he'd get better and fix it. So once again, I got thrown into the deep end, learn how to cook the burgers on busy shifts. Let's just do it. And I kind of feel the same way about the financial aspect. And so that's where, if you can't do it, if your personality isn't going to stay on top of it, then you need to hire somebody. And that's what I did. I hired a great lady. She helped me dig out and she stays on top of me and we get it done on time and right. So if it's not something that's in your personality, so it's not in my personality to go over all the books and do the P&L. I don't like that stuff.
Right.
I want to talk to you. I want to talk to the customers. I want to joke with the employees. I don't want to, do profit and loss statements. So you don't have to, but you have to hire someone who will do it.
Right.
And that's what I did. Is I hired someone to do that. Now you still have to be involved. You have to write the checks, and I actually do write most of the checks, and payroll checks and things like that. So I want to, keep my finger on the pulse, so to say.
Right.
You can't turn your back on that. But, I'll talk with her on a weekly basis. So it's not something that you can ignore. Believe me, if you don't pay your payroll taxes, they'll be knocking on your door. Definitely. And I think that's something that businesses fail to factor in when they're figuring out what to charge, is all the other expenses. Also, we protect our numbers. My employees don't know our sales. I don't want to know what, various businesses' best days were, because their employees are talking. Because what happens is that breeds dissatisfaction, because people and your employees will quickly add up your sales, but no one's ever deducting. They're not taking out the rent or the workman's comp or the cost of food even. And so it can make your employees dissatisfied if they feel like they're not getting adequately compensated. And we do compensate. We do a tip share in the restaurant. So even the people in the back, cooking will get a portion of the tips. And I give employee meals, and we try to keep things a little casual. I don't make them say any kind of pat phrase like, hi, welcome to the burger shop. And they don't have to wear a uniform. They have to be neat. And, we've had various discussions on what we consider neat and what's okay. But I want my employees to have their personalities come out, because I think that is important for our shop. Now, would that approach work with chains, I don't know. Ask Starbucks with their whole uniform change. I don't know. Maybe with chains you need to have a uniform and that. But for us, I've got a girl that only wears pink and lavender and it's her thing, And I got a guy that shows up that every pair of pants has got holes in them, but that's the style. So, we just want to just let their personalities come through so that they can interact with people in a genuine way. And that's what I really try to encourage my employees to just interact with the customers in a genuine way. Make eye contact. If they say it's their first time, what they're really telling you is that they're not sure how this works. Put them at ease. Make them feel comfortable. I think that's best done when they're comfortable.
How's your overall experience been with employees, in the service industry? That's one of the hardest things to overcome or, stay consistent in.
It's definitely, I think, the hardest part is employees. Especially, in a restaurant situation, you're going to have high turnover. But the Burger Shop has always done a really good job of keeping employees for a long time. I've got a woman that's been working for me for 8-9 years. I've had girls that have started working for me at 15 that worked with me till they graduated, college. So I think that when it comes to employees, we're doing pretty good. I think we have a lot of respect for them, and we treat them well. We compensate them well and fairly, and I give them meals and sometimes special treats. So like yesterday I picked up a dozen donuts from Food Line and I said, okay guys, who wants a burger on a donut bun? And they loved it.
Yeah.
So like, you should sell this. And I'm like, no, like too sticky on the fingers. So, but it was actually pretty good, a little decadent, but
Yeah.
Anyway, maybe. We'll see. You never know. But yeah, you got to treat your employees with respect and, and trust them. Do your best to train them. And ultimately, they're the face of your business. So.
Well, I know you've touched on the future of the burger shop and kind of what you're planning for. What about for you personally? Like, what do you see yourself doing?
Well, once upon a time, I almost had my master's in counseling, and I really want to return to that field. I like helping people. I like I like people's stories. I like it when people are trying to fix things. I like to help people reconcile life choices and where they want to be and where they've come from. And I feel really called to help young people. Not just girls, not just boys. It's just something I want to do. Another thing I want to get involved with is when my oldest son graduated from college, he had a degree, he had a small credit card, and he got a job out in Huntsville, Alabama. And I helped him relocate. And I had to front him so much money. He wasn't going to get his first paycheck till January, but he had to be in an apartment by December 1st. And I just was like, what would someone do if they didn't have any family? And it got me thinking about children that age out of the foster care system at 18. And the stats on those children are pretty devastating. And so I'm feeling called to figure out a way that I can help kids that age out of the foster system and help them get established. And so I'm looking for ways to incorporate that in my life as well.
Yeah, all fulfilling stuff for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, I can relate to all that. That's, I didn't think I'd be doing this kind of stuff, but I love learning about people. I love trying to help people. I've done the psychology and the counseling and being a youth minister, and I've went down that path, and it's just eventually I got led away from it. But this is kind of a way for me to still be on that kind of the border of that, being able to learn about people, hear their stories, and A big part of what we do is trying to help people and educate people, and
Yes.
still working with kids and financial literacy and all these different things. So
Yeah.
I can totally relate to all that.
Yeah. I like young people. They crack me up.
Yeah.
So my sister's boyfriend crashed his mountain bike. He's okay, but he was injured. And I got off the phone with her and I told my employees that, oh my gosh, my sister's boyfriend just crashed his mountain bike. And they were like, what's an old guy riding a mountain bike for? And I was like, ouch. I said, we can still ride bikes. But I guess maybe not mountains. But anyway, I just like young people. I love their perspective. I think
Something about that unfiltered honesty.
Yeah, it did cause a problem. And one of my employees called a customer that was upset. She came in and he called her an old lady. It was awful. So I had to do a little damage control there, and I probably lost a customer. And I said, "You can't call her an old lady."
Oh, jeez.
Just it's funny, but you just apologize and do what you can to try to make it better. But it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What piece of advice can you give to somebody that's trying to either figure out what they want to do or they want to get into the restaurant business? Either way, what's something?
Well, one, I know where there's a great one for sale. Let's see. When I was in 8th grade, my teacher did this social experiment and we called it Funky Town. And we all were to create some sort of thing to sell. And so girls were making bracelets and bookmarks and things. And nobody was doing very well. We actually created our own money. I think the town was called Funky Town because that was a popular song back then. But then my strawberry patch at home started producing strawberries, and this was in the 80s and there weren't rules. So I was bringing in strawberries and I became one of the richest people in Funky Town because I was selling food. And every day people need food. So and nobody else got rich except the principal's son who counterfeited it because he had access to the copy machine. But that's my first experience that, food sells because everyday people need it. So it always confounds me that restaurants have such a high rate of failure when it's something that is so important and needed every day. Every day you wake up hungry. Every day you need something to eat. So I always thought in my mind that the businesses that would have the harder time that would be selling things that people didn't always need to buy. And I don't know the answer to that. But what I do know that if you do go into the restaurant business is that you need to put out a good product and you need to not cut corners and you need to provide the customer with a sense of value, perception of value, and to be generous. I think there's an energy that flows with money and business. If you're kind and generous, I think people respond to that. Sometimes I'll see a family and I know they're penny pinching and oops, we made an extra milkshake. Would you guys like this? And things like that just help. And my daughter's been working there since she was 12 and a pregnant woman came in and she really wanted this Dr. Pepper cream soda, but they'd already paid. And she's like, oh, but when their food came out, my daughter grabbed the can and gave it to her and it just made her day. But she had seen me do things like that. So I think just allowing the energy of generosity to flow, and to just, I would tell my employees, we don't have any advertising cost. So it's okay if, someone steals a soda or, the old couple's sharing a drink, just let it go, just don't embarrass them or make them feel bad, just, give them the sauce. I'm not going to charge you 75 cents for 3 pickles, just here's the pickles. You want extra sauce? Here's the sauce. Because I, as a customer, hate getting nickeled and dimed. And I just think that it shows respect for people.
Do you consider yourself an entrepreneur or are you a business owner by happenstance?
I'm a business owner by happenstance. Yeah. But I'm a fighter and a survivor in many ways, and I work hard at what I'm going to do. And it doesn't matter if I'm a student or a stay at home mom or slinging lemonades. I'm going to do whatever I'm doing to the best of my ability. And that's always been my mentality, is to just do what I'm doing with integrity and pride and to the best of my ability. And I'm going to run the burger shop as long as I feel like I need to. Um, I'm not sure if my youngest will really actually want it, but we'll see. But I want to, also listen to my heart and what I feel like I'm being called to do. And that might mean some changes in the future.
Yeah, I think that's such an important message because I find myself saying a lot that not everybody's cut out to be an entrepreneur, but it doesn't mean that that same person can't be successful in what
Correct.
they do. And I think you're a prime example of that. And I think you said it best when you said that your heart's not in it, that you're meant for something different.
Right.
And having that honesty with yourself. Because right now, entrepreneur is something that's just thrown around. It's like, it's such a popular thing to be now, opposed to like when I was growing up, it was like, almost like a dirty word. Like people that were
Right.
entrepreneurs were people that wouldn't commit or wouldn't do the conventional thing. And it's developed into like the support, and everybody wants to be their own boss and business owner. And when you say something like not everybody's cut out to be an entrepreneur, people get offended. And I have trouble articulating what I mean exactly, and I think your story sums it up perfectly of what I mean.
Right. And when I hire young people, we're a small restaurant. We operate with 3 or 4 people, and that's pretty much it. And we're not one of those little shops that has, an easy bus job or an easy dishwashing spot. You have to be able to multitask and to move fast when we get busy. And when I hire people, I will tell them that we'll give you a trial, but you need to know that sometimes a burger shop isn't the right fit for you. And it doesn't mean that you're not capable, and it doesn't mean that you're not intelligent. It's just not the right fit. That was actually a hard part of my job, is having to dismiss people knowing it's their first job.
Yeah.
It was really hard, and I can't tell you how many parents have come in and yelled at me. And I felt horrible. It really just cuts. And I'm very fair. I give people lots of chances. And Alan used to yell at me all the time that we would know right away if someone was going to be able to make it or not. And once again, it's not whether you're intelligent or capable. It's just a certain skill set that not everybody has.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're talking about when not everybody's cut out to be an entrepreneur. It doesn't mean that you're not capable of doing something else very well. It
Right.
just requires a certain skill set that not everybody has. Yeah, that was probably the hardest part of my job, was to dismiss someone that was kind and polite but couldn't do the job. So
Yeah, that's one thing that I struggle with to this day, is just letting people go.
It's hard because you care.
Yeah, I'm not good at it, and I tend to let things drag out way too long because of that, and it's just one of those things that it has to be done sometimes.
it does, unfortunately. Like when we move fast and you have to make change, and when people pay in cash, if you're required to give someone 16 cents change, I can't have you count out 16 pennies.
Yeah.
It's going to take too long. And if you can't figure out a dime, a penny, and a nickel, then we're going to have to find a different thing for you to do.
Yes.
So, no offense.
Yeah.
It's hard.
So is there anything that I breezed over or I missed, or anything else that you'd like to put out into the universe before we close it out?
We were talking about definition of success. Did we want to close with that?
We can go into that if we've covered everything else, then absolutely. And the reason I like to close on this is because I feel like for me it was life changing. Once I figured out my definition of success, it helped guide me through all of my professional decisions and my family decisions, and it's really made my life a lot better.
So, what
And
is your definition of success?
my definition of success, turning it back on me now. So mine is being able to spend the time with my family, support them in their dreams and their ambitions, to be able to go and travel with them, to chase their skill set or chase their passion, and then at the same time being able to demonstrate what it takes to be successful and run a business and be stable, and also being able to afford the things that we need without having to worry about it. It's not a shiny car, it's not a big house, it's none of these things. It's about being able to afford experiences and have people enjoy those with me, because the way my mind works, I'm not able to stop and enjoy things a lot. So I don't know, happiness is something that I struggle to understand. But when I feel the most fulfilled is watching other people enjoy the things that I've created.
I can
So
see that.
that's my definition of success.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I like that.
And at the end of every interview, we've noticed that, like, if you listen to what somebody says is their definition, then the whole rest of the interview makes so much sense, and the choices that they made. And everybody's is different. That's what's awesome about it, and that's why I love closing on it, because it just ties everything together.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. And you're right, because when I think of my definition of success, and I've been kind of struggling with this concept, like, what is it? But this interview's allowed me to really focus on what that is, and it's crystallized in my mind, and it's been my definition of success for the last 25 years. And that is to be the best mother that I can be. Oh, to like get my kids where they need to be, to provide for them so that they can choose their life path and do what they are supposed to do, and then to provide a home that is not just food, clothing, shelter, but a safe place to fall, a place where mom's going to be there with a hug if you're having a hard day. And so that's why I'm still here doing this burger shop. My daughter is a senior, and she's going to be hopefully figuring out what she needs to do. And my son is 14, and I still have his needs to consider as to what's the best thing for him. And of course, I have a 19-year-old that's special needs, and I have to factor in what he needs. So my definition of success for right now is to get these 5 kids raised to be wonderful kids, and to find out what it is that they want to do.
I can't think of any better way to end it than that. So we appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Thoroughly enjoyed this.
Thank you so much.
Thanks again. I enjoyed
Yeah.
it.
Thank you.